Hello everyone and welcome to a very windy Newcastle upon Tyne in the United Kingdom. So if you hear a bit of wind in the background, that's why. This is Bear in Mind's review of the Royal Rumble 2023. First off, I think outstanding show. As I said in the previous video, it was the first pay-per-view or premium live event, as they now are, for quite some time, where I've been genuinely excited. I think the build for it has been fantastic. Some of the storylines that they've been doing recently been absolutely spot on. Obviously one of those capped off the show, but we'll get to that later on. And the build to WrestleMania is starting now. They opened the show with the men's Royal Rumble. I didn't see that coming. I genuinely thought that was going to come fourth on the card, just behind the men's world title match. As it turned out, I think it was right to open it with the men's one. Gunter, what a show from him. First to second last, and set the record for the longest person in a Rumble ever as well. Cody Rhodes returning at number 30 and winning. A little predictable, one might think, but then it is the plan that they've had all along. No Sami Zayn in the Rumble at all as well. That was surprising, but again, we'll talk about it later. I think it was probably the right choice given how they closed the show. Very few surprises in the match as well. That was a good one. Obviously, we already knew that Brock and Bobby were going to be in it, so their little spot was again predictable, very nicely done. Brock destroying the ringside area, having to be escorted to the back. That worked. They're obviously setting up Brock versus Bobby at WrestleMania. I wonder if they'll do a more MMA ruled match. Possible. Possibly a gimmick match of some sort. It might be Hell in a Cell. Obviously, there's no official Hell in a Cell pay-per-view anymore. So it's a good place to go. Brock is fantastic in Hell in a Cell. He really works well in that environment. So, yeah, we could see that. That would be nice. But yeah, obviously they weren't in it very long. Seth Rollins got eliminated by Logan Paul, who'd returned from his injury. He looked very good. Obviously, that high spot with Ricochet was very cool. Looks like they're leading towards Rollins versus Logan Paul at WrestleMania. Don't really have an issue with that. Again, Logan Paul, not a big fan of him. I think as a human being, he's certainly a less than good person, shall we say. But then I think, unfortunately, I think you could say that about a lot of the wrestlers of the last 20 years or so that we've all had as our heroes in one time or another. Once you peek behind the curtain, or in this case of certain people, like mayors of certain counties, once you peer behind the mask, you realise maybe the character wasn't... their villainous characters on screen were not as bad as they are in real life. But, you know, that's for another topic. So, yeah, Rollins versus Logan Paul at WrestleMania should be a damn good match. Logan Paul is a natural. In a different world, potentially he'd be a full-time wrestler. We shall see. He's still young enough. He might end up going down that way if everything else kind of falls by the wayside later on. But in the meantime, I'm sure that Seth will get a decent match out of him. Moving on then to the next match. It was the Mountain Dew pitch black match between Bray Wyatt in his first match back on television anyway. I assume he's had a few rehearsals and what have you. and the excellent LA Knight. It was short enough. It didn't need to be any longer. Obviously, there's a decent spot out after the match as well with Uncle Howdy and the various different parts of the White Six. I think visually this was really cool. It wasn't too much of a gimmick, I don't think. I watched the interview with Bray where he was talking about how he himself didn't even know what the rules were going to be of this match, what the gimmick was going to be. If it was him, he thinks possibly he might have pushed it too far and it would be a bit confusing and what have you. I don't think this was confusing at all. It was quite obvious that, this is a sponsored match, and so it was just a cool little gimmick. It was, I suppose, no different to that zombie match that the zombie lumberjack match they had a few years back, where the Army of the Dead, that Batista film, sponsored one of the matches. I think this was actually probably more acceptable than the Army of the Dead zombie match. It was typical Bray. Not the best match on the card. Certainly not the best match you'll see this year. But a good presentation. He looks huge. He's obviously muscled up quite a lot in his time away. LA Knight looked great. And I think going down the line, realistically, with how well LA Knight's done in the last few months, mic work in particular, sure, I think he's about 40 now, so he's on the older side to start a big career, let's say. I know he's had a 20-year career, but at least on the big stage, he's a little late. But I think they'll make good use of him in the time that they'll have him. So, as long as he can stay healthy, no major injuries, I think we'll see a lot more of LA Knight, and that'll be great. Next, continuing with the Bray Wyatt theme, we had Alexa Bliss versus Bianca Belair. I almost forgot her bloody name there. I don't know why. This was always going to go the way that it went. I don't think there was ever any doubt that Bianca would retain the title. She's a very strong, literally very, very strong, dominant champion. I think physically she is excellent, and how well she's come along over the years and become someone who can hold her own. Obviously, she can be the star. She is the star, and hopefully many, many more years to come. And I think I think the most exciting thing with her is there's so much more for her to grow. I think her promos can be better, her character work and everything like that, and the ring work is going to get better and better and better and better. And so who knows, 10 years down the line we might be saying Bianca Belair the greatest of all time. I think she's certainly got that potential. Alexa Bliss, obviously significantly smaller, outrageously good character work, not necessarily the physical entity that some of the other women are, but they put a decent match on together, told the story that needed to be told, and then of course we get a little tease of what's coming with Uncle Howdy and her returning. And again, going back to that Ryan Satin interview, or Satin, or however you pronounce his name, Bray mentioning that Alexa is the one piece of the puzzle that keeps him happy from an era. Obviously, he's had a lot of tragedy in his life in the past few years. I think it's quite nice that she's coming back into the fold to do whatever it is so that he can be at peace and do that story. And again, when she's allowed to do things like that, she excels. She's wonderful. She's fantastic. And I think that's great. So it's done her no harm to lose in a world title match. And story-wise, it's just going to continue. We'll see where that goes. Obviously, does he get something at WrestleMania? Does Alexa Bliss get something at WrestleMania? Currently, Bray Wyatt is listed as a babyface or treated as a babyface. So, who would be the bad guy for him at WrestleMania? Who knows? Could it be him versus Uncle Howdy? Is it a bit too early for him versus Uncle Howdy? We'll see. I did see an interesting suggestion of Bray and Alexa Bliss versus Karrion Kross and Scarlett at WrestleMania. I would not be against that. It would again probably wouldn't be the greatest match, but it could be quite a spectacle. So if that's where they end up going, yeah, fair enough. Why not? Next we had the Men's Royal Rumble. Because obviously quite a small card. This typical Triple H, not that I have a problem with that. I think Triple H does an absolutely superb job. I don't think we need too many matches on a card, as it was with only 5 matches. This went 4.5 hours, I think, this event, which is fine when you got 2 Royal Rumbles. So, and the story that needed to be told. The Women's Royal Rumble is number 4 then. With, as predicted, Rhea Ripley going from number 1 all the way to the end and winning. Good, strong showing. I think actually the best thing about this Rumble was it didn't rely on surprises. The men's didn't rely on surprises too much. Obviously, it only got Booker T, really, as far as a big legend went. So that was good. I think this didn't rely on surprises as well. It's finally at that point where the women's roster in WWE, main roster and NXT, is deep enough to give you 25 at least excellent women who can carry that Rumble without the gimmicks of returning stars. Obviously, the nice little joke of Michelle McCool not knowing that she was going to be in it. She sat front row, jumped over the barrier, did what she needed to do, etc., etc. That was cool. Tamina, I don't know how active she is, so I was leaning towards treating her in my mind as a legend. She is a legend. She's been around for a long time now. But certainly deserves a legendary status. The return of Natty Neidhart, one of my personal favourites. Definitely a legend there, as much as she might still be an active wrestler. She is a Hall of Famer. She is realistically someone who, without her, the women's division in WWE would not be what it is today. It's probably wouldn't be even remotely recognisable. The story between Becky Lynch and Bayley continued. Obviously, Damage Control. Becky took 2 of them out, and then finally Becky got eliminated. So we're going to see some more Becky versus Bayley. If it goes all the way to WrestleMania, I'm cool with that as well. Get those 2 on the card, because fantastic. 2 of the best. But yeah, and of course, the return of Piper Niven. In the name of Piper Niven. She's had a few months off because of issues with a work visa, apparently. So she's back. She's not Dewdrop anymore. She's back to Piper Niven. Slightly tweaked look from her NXT days, but very, very good. Good out in there. And I think the biggest surprise was Nia Jax, which of course they fumbled a little bit. They managed to start playing the music before the countdown started playing. But yeah, I don't think anyone expected that. So very, very interesting there. But yeah, right 1-1. Rhea Ripley. Obviously, I'm recording this after Raw has happened as well, so we know that Rhea Ripley is going to face Charlotte at WrestleMania in a rematch from the WrestleMania 2020. I think that's the right choice. Oh, and of course, one more return. We saw the return of Asuka, who's been on the shelf with an injury as well, and she returned in a slightly darker guise that she has been teasing on her socials. A similar look to her character in Japan from years back, so a little bit dark, a little bit. She used the poison mist and stuff like that. So that'll be cool. If she ends up with Bianca Belair at WrestleMania, I think that'll be spot on. They could have a cracking match. Obviously, a clash of styles, but that would be good. Excuse me. Finally, then, match number 5 for the undisputed World Heavyweight Championship: Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens. I think as it got closer to it, and obviously with Cody winning, we sort of knew full well that realistically Kevin Owens wasn't winning this, unless there was a major screw job. We had pretty much at this point had guarantees that Dwayne Johnson, the Rock, was not going to be involved. Although there was still possibly that tiny bit of doubt. He apparently was in Texas anyway to do something else. So could have showed up. Didn't. Doesn't look like he's going to have anything to do this year, other than maybe in my, as I said in my predictions video from last week, could he be the one or the reason that Cody wins at WrestleMania, setting up then a 1-year build to Roman versus The Rock at WrestleMania 40? Maybe. So good match, possibly went a touch long. Kevin Owens was fantastic, as he always is, sold everything, even made up for a little mistake when he tried to do his little springboard moonsault and missed. 2 of the best, doing great work. In the end, Roman won, as you'd expect, and then we see the aftermath. Then we see a very angry Roman Reigns instructing the Bloodline to beat the crap out of Kevin Owens. Handcuffed him to the ropes, continued to beat him and beat him and beat him and beat him, and then finally got the chair that was used in the match itself. Was part of a little hint of Sami turning in the match. Roman about to hit him, Sami finally stepping up and saying, "You know, it's beneath you, don't do it, you don't need to do it." Roman going, "Of course I don't, you're going to do it." And then we see the turn and the crowd. Oh my word, this story has been told so well. It has been years since the crowd have been that emotionally kind of into something like this, to the point that it didn't need The Rock. I don't think anyone went home dissatisfied for not seeing The Rock that night. I don't think anyone who watched it on pay-per-view or on the network or what have you felt disappointed by the lack of Dwayne Johnson that night. We saw something wonderful. And then, of course, Sami essentially sacrifices himself. The Bloodline, minus Jey Uso, leave him out in the ring as well. Jey, who's recently defended Sami in the trial of Sami Zayn on Raw, now heartbroken that the Bloodline has turned on Sami Zayn. He walks out, and the final thing that we see in the Royal Rumble event itself, Roman Reigns saying, "We're at war. We're at war." Of course, next month is Elimination Chamber from Sami and Kevin's home city of Montreal in Canada. There were some leaked images last week of the ringside seats, which usually have the posters or that sort of thing on their upholstery, and it's Sami Zayn inside Hell in a Cell. Looks like we're going to get Sami versus Roman for the Undisputed title in Montreal. I do not know how that's going to go. In all honesty, you would expect Roman's going to win. You would expect somehow we're going towards Roman versus Cody, probably to finish off night 2 for both titles. It does look like Cody might be doing what he did with the IC title and hopefully bringing back the Winged Eagle belt if we get down that line. We shall see. But I think, yeah, so we're heading towards Cody versus Roman, and we're heading towards Sami and Kevin versus the Usos for the tag team titles, possibly, hopefully, headlining Saturday night. So we get, for the first time in a very, very, very long time, a tag team match headlining WrestleMania. I don't know how they're going to get there, because obviously Jay, at the moment, obviously I'm recording this before this week's SmackDown, so I don't know how it's going to go down there. Jay was disappointed in the way that the Bloodline treated Sami. How do they get the Usos back together, even just enough to defend those titles? Meanwhile, in the men's Hell in a Cell match itself, we already know that there's going to be for the US title. So Austin Theory will be defending against a handful of people. Currently in that, Seth Rollins, Johnny Gargano, and oh God, what's his name? Big Australian lad. Can't remember his bloody name. Bear with me. Yes, so I'm back. Bronson Reed. Apologies, not that Bronson Reed will ever watch this, I'm sure. But yeah, Bronson Reed. He's the other current person in the match. So, and I was saying Hell in a Cell, wasn't I? I think it's Elimination Chamber. So, but yeah, a very, very good Royal Rumble. I don't think it was as sensational as some. But I think actually it was probably more satisfying of a Royal Rumble as a whole event than many others. In fact, the majority of others. And it's been going for, 37 years now, something like that. 34, I think. 37? Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, this was one of the best that they've ever done. And again, specifically with the women's Rumble match itself, the depth is there now. And I think that's what it showed. That's what this entire event showed, that there is such depth that we're in a good place. The company's in a good place. But we're in a good place as fans that for this foreseeable future, there's plenty of people, plenty of stars in the making, plenty of stories to tell. The fact that they didn't need so many big surprise guests as previous years, excellent, absolutely excellent. So yeah, quality pay-per-view or premium live event. Don't really give star ratings on this channel, but I tell you what, we'll go with the cold light of day scale like we do in our film reviews. So out of 5, I'd say this is definitely a good 4.5 for me. Excellent show. Thank you very much. See you all soon.